believe it, everyone. My entire life has been a lie. For years, ever since I started TV Trash, I thought that we were the worst. I thought the USA was the absolute worst at being completely lazy and unoriginal when it came to television production. But no, I just recently found out that those bloody wankers on the other side of the pond are just as bad, if not worse! In more than 230 episodes, one thing I've dealt with multiple times was poor adaptations and remakes of shows from other nations. For the longest time, I thought the worst of the lot was the American remake of Coupling, especially as far as blatantly copying verbatim the original material. But then one loyal Patreon supporter made the request that I look at something called Days Like These, which debuted on the British network ITV in February of 1999. You all may recall that I haven't looked at a foreign TV show since... So, what would it take to make me look at another one? I mean, besides getting Patreon money for it. Well, brace yourselves. I'm gonna start by just letting you see for yourself. This is Days Like These.
Eric, it is time.
Why don't you go?
It's your house.
Yeah, it's your house.
Listen to them in there. The party has reached its critical mass. In 10 minutes' time, there will be no more beer theft opportunities.
Yes, but if my dad catches me nicking booze, he will kill me.
Eric, I'm willing to take that risk.
And above all, don't get sucked into my dad's hair.
No snacking, no talking, no sucking.
What's wrong with your dad's hair?
Just don't look at it.
Does this look at all familiar?
The party has reached critical mass. In 10 minutes, there will be no more beer opportunities.
If my dad catches me copping beers, he'll kill me.
I'm willing to take that risk.
And above all, don't get sucked into my dad's hair.
What's wrong with your dad's hair?
Just don't look at it.
Yeah, it's that 70s show. No hiding it whatsoever. It's that 70s show almost word for word. Exact same time setting, exact same plot, with pretty much the exact same characters. They even went so far as to cast British look-alike versions of Topher Grace, Ashton Kutcher, and Lara Prepon. But hey, at least this show didn't last long enough for this version of Donna to go with a god-awful bleached blonde look, right? And no, I can't call it a ripoff of that 70s show because this thing was made with the permission of the original producers, Carsey Werner. And get this, it premiered on the British airwaves just 6 months after that 70s show debuted in America. The original hadn't even completed its first season yet. By comparison, the US version of Coupling premiered 3 years after the original British version debuted. America's Men Behaving Badly, 4 years after the UK original. And Kath and Kim's US counterpart debuted 6 years after the Australian original. Man, those Europeans gotta fast track us on everything, don't they? And here's where it gets really bad. It's not just the pilot that completely remakes the original version almost word for word. Every single episode of this series, all 9 of them, is a complete copycat. The episode about Eric's birthday, the episode where Donna humiliates Eric in sports, the episode about Donna going on birth control, you name it, 70s Show did it. So why give the show a whole different title? Why even suggest that this is something completely new when it's almost exactly the same as something already established? I mean, say what you will about Coupling, Kath and Kim, Life on Mars, but hey, at least we ugly Americans never went so far as to duplicate a foreign show absolutely verbatim, including casting choices that were pretty much clones of the original, and then tried to stick a new name on our version to try to pass it off as something different. Why can't I catch a break? Yeah, you knew I finally had to talk about this one in detail, didn't ya? One of the earliest examples of America making a blatant carbon copy of another country's show was all the way back in the 70s with Three's Company, which most people know by now is a virtual clone of the British series Man About the House. And now that I finally watched some of that show, yeah, you just can't ignore how blatant us Yanks completely duplicated it. John Ritter, Joyce DeWitt, Suzanne Summers, and even Norman Fell were clearly cast because of their resemblances to the British cast. And almost all of the first 6 episodes that made up the brief first season just copied episodes of the original. Even the pilot's episode was titled A Man About the House. But here's the thing to anyone who thinks I'm being a damn hypocrite calling out the Brits on this one. Three's Company eventually branched out on its own. By that show's second season, most of its episodes were originally written. Admittedly, you have no choice in that matter when an American TV season contains about 3 times as many episodes as a British show. But it just goes to show that they were willing to make that commitment. Heck, Man About the House had ended its 6-year run at 39 episodes by the time Three's Company even premiered, so they could have gone the full easy route for at least another full season, but they didn't. And that's not a lone occurrence when it comes to all of our copycat shows. As bad as our installment of Men Behaving Badly was, it looks like they at least tried to firmly establish their own identity from the start. And maybe it would have worked if they hadn't cast Rob Schneider at all. Even the US version of Kath and Kim had more than half its episodes be original creations, and it looked like they were trying to take the characters on a different path from their Aussie counterparts. It didn't work, again, because of bad casting and characterization, but at least they were trying. Even Coupling, which only had 5 episodes produced, at least started making its own stories by the 4th episode. I just had to defend every bad American remake I've reviewed on this show. What's next? I'm gonna have to defend the US Red Dwarf as well? But that's what makes this thing even worse than everything I have reviewed before, because at least the aforementioned kept the same titles, admitting that they were just remaking something that was originally created overseas, while eventually trying to veer in their own direction with what they were copying, as badly as they did so. Now, maybe, just maybe there would have been opportunities for Days Like These to branch itself out down the road. But when you're only producing 6 to 9 episodes a season, making every single one a carbon copy of what you're adapting from is just lazy. Especially when you're using that material for the one thing that has changed, the setting. As I've established, I'm an ugly American. I've never ventured outside the shores of this continent in my life, so I admittedly don't know much about British culture, especially that of 40 years ago. But I think it's a fair guess to say that England in the 70s was not the same as America in the 70s. The creators specifically started that 70s show in 1976 because it was a time when the culture the decade was known for was firmly established, and they could touch on issues like the fuel shortages and the Nixon scandal. One of the biggest examples of this was the streaking episode, which, yes, Days Like These copied. In the original, it was centered around Red planning to ask President Gerald Ford some tough questions during a public appearance, which made sense because that first season was in an election year that Ford eventually lost to Jimmy Carter. It was the perfect ending that when Eric streaking caused Red to stop being nervous, he finally had the perfect question to ask.
Here's my question. How the hell could you pardon Nixon?
What do we get in the British version?
Your Royal Highness, I must say, we did know you were coming here today. But we didn't expect to see the crown jewels as well.
Congrats, dude. You make me want to see Kurtwood Smith shove his foot up your ass. That is perhaps where this show fails more than anything else. You're not just recycling stories, but characters whose personas became beloved because of who had previously been portraying them. Actors make characters in television perhaps more than any other medium. We associate the performer with the character. It's why so many people cringe at the thought of remaking beloved shows in the first place. Because we can't see anyone else being able to pull off what we love to see about the original, and more often than not, we're proven right. Not everything can work like Doctor Who, where it's established a new version of the Doctor will have his own new quirks that the next performer will help develop, and thus people become intrigued to see what the next incarnation will be like. Ashton Kutcher was the reason people loved Kelso. Kurtwood Smith was the reason they loved Red Foreman. Just because you cast a bunch of British people that kind of look like those actors doesn't mean they're going to pull off the same performances that anyone watching this show is going to want to see. And no, I don't buy that they could have gotten away with this because no one in Britain had heard of that 70s show, even with this one premiering so soon after the original. Even by 1999, worldwide distribution was picking up its pace significantly. And the Fox network that 70s show aired on was especially taking those strides. So I highly doubt no one in the UK had seen that 70s show even when this thing premiered on their airwaves. They knew a cheap duplicate when they saw it, and they made it known. The show got such abysmal ratings and reviews, it got canned after those 9 episodes aired, and has been virtually buried in the years since. You know, until people like us on the internet unearth them for God knows what reasons, shows like Days Like These should stay buried deeper than an Egyptian pharaoh. I think we've established that adapting one work for an audience from another country is not easy. But when some of the worst American adaptations I can think of still put out more effort than this, it's a whole new level of why did you even bother? The writing staff had talent, to be sure. In fact, some of them went on to write for shows like Black Mirror. But here they were clearly handcuffed by an edict to just regurgitate already written material for a setting and performers that could not pull it off. If this was Britain's attempt to enact revenge on us Yanks for ripping off their shows with Three's Company, it went about as well as the Battle of Yorktown. And yet, this wasn't even the only time where that 70s show spawned a terrible attempt to piggyback its success. Oh yeah, we here in America still found a way to make something just as, if not more pointless than Days Like These. We'll get into that next time on TV Trash.